Okay. All right. So this is sort of a pop-up live that I'm doing because, hold on, it's buffering. So I wonder if it's buffering for them too. Let me just check. Oh no. Okay, we're good. Okay, so this is going to be an impromptu live. And actually, I wish I could like record our conversations for you guys. Like every conversation that I have with him, I kind of want to record because we always talk about these things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if only we were sharing these conversations with you guys. So he and I got into like a lightweight, I wouldn't call it a beef, but a beef regarding academicians and YouTubers. And so it went a lot of directions. I was sort of asked, okay, so admittedly, here on YouTube, people take a different approach. And kind of how this conversation started, and babe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, kind of how this conversation started is that I was saying that he does a program with some other Black men that are academicians, basically. Lots of doctor. I think everybody is a doctor or something like that that does the program that he does with a friend of his. Like he has a podcast and he invites other doctors on, and they all sit down and they have conversations about the same sort of issues that we have conversations about on YouTube. And so I was saying how it's so interesting that there can be 3 or 4 of them in a conversation and they're talking about the same topics that I see men discussing here on YouTube. And it's like a totally different vibe. Like if they don't agree, nobody yells, nobody's cursing, nobody's fighting. It's like a totally different thing. So this is how the conversation between he and I started because I was just, it just impressed upon me hearing men, different types of men have the same conversations, not agree, and the behavior be different. And so when I brought this up to him, he had like some comments. They, what was like, that's how the conversation started, right?
Well, well, let me just clarify and correct you. So, um, on this platform, I'm not going to mention because you told me not to mention anything, but on this platform that I'm often a guest commentator on, um, so it's not full with academicians, right? So we're not we don't all have our doctorates or advanced degrees. No, a lot of us are just common brothers. I mean, some who
Babe,
formed
I've never
incarcerated.
heard anybody on there who doesn't have a degree. Like, never known
No,
one.
no. I mean, no, it's true. I mean, you have people on there with bachelors and everything, and again, you have people on there that are not degreed. That is true. Um, and like I said, you have some on there who were formerly incarcerated and everything who are doing great things now. But I think where this kind of sprang or sprung up from, I think you had a guest, and I'm not going to mention her name, and she was pretty much saying that, you know, academicians really just talk cute, and they're really not activists, right? They really don't go out there and do a whole lot, but just talk cute and
Oh,
appear.
yeah, yeah,
So, and I
yeah,
concurred with
that's
that.
true.
But I said that kind of monolithic, you know, view of all academicians is inaccurate. And so, and I think earlier this week or sometime last week, we were talking about, Black YouTubers and, you know, what are they really doing? Are they just doing it to monetize? Or are they actually trying to help the Black community? In which way and shape? And we start talking about, well, what is the distinction between Black academicians? Because they're just
Not,
talking and
not,
bloviating and writing
mhm.
research papers and everything,
Yeah,
and they're not
right.
doing anything. So,
Babe.
that's where it kind of sprung or sprang,
Babe.
we're derived from, right? That's where this kind of
Friend.
conversation derived from. And
Nah. Wait,
as I was,
wait, wait, wait. He's
yeah,
trying to say that but we nothing. He was essentially saying Black YouTubers are out here like catching a coin and they're not really doing anything. And I said that academicians do the same thing. They go out, they give lectures, they do panels, and they write, they write papers and they don't do anything for the most
well,
part.
let me clarify. You know, so I'm gonna keep it a buck because I don't know any other way to be. We have to keep it, we have to keep it a buck. We have to keep it 100. There are some YouTubers, again, this is their hustle, right? And this is the way they're monetizing. And I'm not gonna knock anybody's hustle or anything if that's what you're doing. But my thing is that I don't want you to do it off the backs of other black people, especially, the disenfranchised black people, which are most of us who are catching hell on a daily basis. So if if you're prophesizing or conveying or articulating that you're, this type of savior and your rhetoric is going to help our people in the community, but you're just collecting chips, then I have a problem with that. But I also have a problem with academicians that do the same thing, that just talk pretty and write a whole lot of articles and papers and everything that don't impact the black community. So let me be clear here. I think it's a place and point for both of them, because I don't think we just need one over the other. I think there's a place for black YouTubers. I think there's obviously a place for black academicians. I think
Y'all, see, the problem with having a conversation with him previously and then having a conversation with him after he already knows everything I'm going to say is that he changes his talking points. Because, because
really
I promise you, yes, babe, you slightly did, yes. Because at first you were trying to say that by writing papers, academicians are doing something.
they are.
That because
I'm not.
you were like, they publish papers, they da da da, and I was like,
Yeah, so I'm not saying that's not true. I did say that. So, and again, but when you're publishing work and everything, if it's not something that can be utilized within the community, then it's kind of worthless, right? It's just like toilet paper. So I also said that. So, say what I said in its entirety. So I did say those things. And I did say, I mean, it's very similar to black YouTubers where, they're going out and doing talks and having these different types of panel discussion and everything. A lot of black academicians do the same thing. And again, a lot of black academicians are just there, collect their 20K or whatever, or even more in some cases, and then they're out. And some black YouTubers do the same thing. So my thing is that we need to hold both accountable. Because again, if it's just a hustle and we're making money, money off the back of black people, then that's a problem. I also said this within, within, you know, academia, it's often frowned upon to be kind of like an academic activist, where you're actually, doing research and theory and actually, seeing if that theory is helping people in the community and actually working with people in the community. So you're not trying to be.
actually, I found that really fascinating, you guys. I did not know that. I don't know if you guys caught what he's saying. Is that when you are in academia, it's actually frowned upon for you to do on the ground boots on the ground work, like that actually is frowned upon. They almost expect you to be like pie in the sky and publish papers and things like that, but not actually in the community getting your hands dirty.
Well, and let me clarify what I mean by that. So, of course, if you're like, if, if you're an ethnographer, like if you're studying the people around you within the community, of course they're going to say, okay, well, you have to get the data, right? You have to get the research. But outside of gathering the research and everything to, publish these papers and everything, then why are you there? You know what I mean? So you can have a vested interest within a community ongoingly, because the ivory tower limits those types of activities if you allow them to. And again, so what I try to do is, of course, I've had more actions and interactions with communities and done more things than I publish. Now I want to publish, but again, I want to make sure that it is actually something that's going to be utilized within the community. You know what I mean? Not something that just sounds like this is an excellent theory, some pie in the sky, but it's actually something pragmatic and something that can be applicable and implemented within our community. And again, it'll be shape shifted in a way that the voice of the community really, that's they're the orators of it. You know what I mean? They're shifting it. They're in control of it. They have agency and autonomy. But again, that's not what we do oftentimes in Academy. We often say, we're these degreed, intelligent Black folks. We know better than Pookie and Ray Ray. So here's the framework. Y'all do it this way, and then everything will be fine. And we don't even know the reality of Pookie and Ray Ray because we want to distance ourselves from them. And again, there's a lot of academicians that don't come from that framework, not cut from that fabric. And again, I have to say this, there's some YouTubers not cut from that fabric where they're just trying to hustle and monetize and off the backs of Black folks. But again, are we having these conversations? So that's why this conversation we're having is so important. So we can end this kind of bifurcation or call out people, hold them accountable, and see how there could be some type of synergy, how there could be some type of symbiosis between the two. Because if we're ultimately trying to do the same thing, there shouldn't be this bifurcation. Now, again, the ways in which we do things shouldn't always look identical, right? But we should be going the same direction. And if that's not happening, then that's a problem.
So I would have to say that I have a problem across the board, right? I have a problem across the board with people who have a lot to say, whether they be in academia or on YouTube. I think conversations are nice. And this is actually one of my pet peeves. I think conversations are nice to have, but I think action is even better. So for him, like he said, he does and always, has done for some time, a lot of work like in the community. But I feel like across the board, we have Black people, hey Deadshot, we have Black people who are very focused on conversation and focused a lot less on action, focused a lot on analyzation and focused a lot less on action. And I feel like both with Black YouTubers and Black academicians, that they both tend to capitalize monetarily on these things. So, people aren't publishing papers out of the goodness of their hearts, right? People are publishing papers because the more that they know, they are known, the more that they publish, the more that they're known, the more they're accepted, the more speaking engagements they'll get, the more money they can make. The same thing goes for YouTube, right? YouTubers write books and little things like that. They hold panels both in person and on YouTube. They do things like that to build a name for themselves. But these things don't trickle down into anything that's effectual for the community. If anything, they render more conversation, right? And everybody coming at it from a different angle. So I really find like both things are right. CJH, conversation makes money. And I feel like action doesn't make money. Actually, action does the exact opposite of make money. Action risks you getting your money, right? Especially when we talk about the Black community, things that are action oriented means that we're not investing in the current system. So when I look at the conversations, when I look at the publishing of papers and things like that, I view that as a reinvestment in a system that is not working, right? And a building a framework and a system that is not working, which really inhibits detachment, in my opinion. And I feel that both academicians and YouTubers do it. And it's really funny when I hear, because we know that this line like exists in our community, where we will draw a line in the sand between people who are degreed, academicians, and people who are not. And we draw this class line in between. And so the sister he's talking about, she was saying just that too, is that, you know, these Black academicians are sitting up on a high horse somewhere, not really being involved, not really getting their hands dirty. And a lot of people feel that way about a lot of Black YouTubers. They run their mouths a lot and they have a lot to say, but they're not truly getting their hands dirty, and not just popping in and out, you know, doing things at random or showing up someplace where they're personally not invested, but also you know, but actually engaging in like work with regularity, sort of the way that Q Butter is doing, where he actively runs a school every day. Do you know what I mean? Or your mentoring program, babe, like where there's active engagement with people in the community every day. And so I think that's something actually that I find that academicians and YouTubers have in common. What I will say is that I feel that academicians engage in a level of civility, right, with their arguments and conversations, to the point that they are not profitable for the average Black person. And kind of on the flip side of that, Black YouTubers sometimes engage in conversations that are so like, I'm just talking to somebody at the corner store on the street, that they are not able to be used by Black people that fall middle of the road, right?
Well,
So I feel like, go ahead, babe.
yeah, well, I concur with most of that, but I will say this in defense of those of us who are just bloviators, right? Who just have the tendency of talking. That may be their acumen, right? That they have the gift of gab. And so oftentimes, especially within the Black community, if somebody is charismatic, right? If they're very articulate and they have a way with words, they're wordsmith, right? They will captivate people, right? With their charisma. And again, from those talking points that he or she may have, even though they themselves may not be doing action, it may lead to action within the people who are listening to them. So I'm not going to just lambaste everybody who's, just running off at the mouth, because they may have some very good and great, excellent things to share that they're conveying to the people that they're listening audience. Even though they may not be doing the sweat equity, what they're saying is actually true. So I think we have to consider that point. Even the same thing with, again, academicians and with their writing and publishing everything. It may be very much on point and it may be utilized in a way that can help impact our community. So again, I think we just need to really situate our strengths, right? And again, use those strengths. And again, to make sure, hey, challenging people like, hey, all right, who's going to pick up this torch and everything? Like, I may have done all the research and these surveys and these ethnographic studies and everything, all this stuff. Now, who's going to utilize this stuff? So I think we have levels and layers and ways in which we can participate in this. And again, some people are maybe really altruistic in them, kind of preaching or articulating what they're saying. They may be very passionate about it. And again, we know this. There may be some people who are you know, just utilizing this as a hustle. And again, so I think there's a distinction, because again, I mean, there's some people that really go into depths and everything on YouTube. I mean, they're researchers and scholars too. Now they may not have, they may not be considered quote unquote an academician with letters and everything, but that doesn't take away from the fact that they spend a whole lot of time researching and going into different sources and citing things that are applicable and relevant to our people. So again, what I want to be clear about it again is that we know some people who are just doing this, like you alluded to earlier. I mean, they're just trying to be comical, right? They're just trying to be entertaining, and we do need that. But sometimes it gets kind of, there's a thin line. And again, you want your appeal to be holistic, right? You want to come across as as listenable, right, or readable. being relatable to the real people. You know, varies of people, variations of people. But again, my concern is that those people, whether the academicians or black academicians or black YouTubers, or just have no, I mean, it's just a straight up hustle. You know what I mean? It's just a straight up hustle. I mean, they may be saying some of the things, but again, they really don't care about it. I mean, they may even be giving out false information, right? But it doesn't matter because they know their audience, you know, may not, check or cite or see if the things they're saying are even accurate, right? And so they could bloviate and say everything they want because maybe they're charismatic, maybe they're handsome, maybe they're attractive, whatever the case may be, and that's going to keep them going. And so I think just like YouTubers have an accountability of calling out other YouTubers saying, hey, what is your role in trying to uplift the black community? Are you in fact trying to do that? Or are you in fact just trying to make money? I mean, let's just keep it a buck. Let us know what you're doing so we don't lump you in this crowd of these so-called conscious black YouTubers who are, putting on panels doing stuff, because what happens, everybody gets lumped into the same, crowd. And as black people, we know we can't, there's no separation of that. And the same thing with black academicians. So again, I don't want to just paint everybody that may just talk a good game, because again, that may be their acumen, just to talk a good game and do the research and present the information, and then say, hey, I've done this part. Now who's going to take the lead in finding the solution?
Well, I think that I have to push back on the fact that, Rozzy, that's my man. I have to push back on the fact that Rozzy was asking who was talking, babe. I have to push back on the fact that Black people need entertainment. I think the last thing we need is entertainment. I think we have enough flipping entertainment. I'm gonna need us to not have some creature comfort so that we can feel something other than satiated and not wanting to, do anything because we're just so satisfied with everything. I think the fact that we even think we have time to be entertained is a problem, right? There's no time for this. There's no time for you to be entertained. I think we could be entertained later. I think we're entertained enough. But with that said, I also feel like I'm glad you brought up research and citations and stuff like that. I feel people, even here on YouTube, are always like, well, what research, what study, da 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 da. Like, where's your source for that? And I get really sick of that. Now, don't get me wrong. You guys can go through my videos. You know that I will cite sources and things like that. I mostly do that to pander to y'all. Because, I don't mean necessarily the people present here, but pander to the people who watch my videos, because I know a lot of people just act like if you don't have a source, it doesn't mean anything, even though in all actuality, there are always conflicting studies. There are always conflicting information. I can pull a legitimate source that says X. You could pull a legitimate source that says YZ. So like, sources don't mean crap. It just makes you feel good, and it makes people feel that your argument is more solid, when the reality is, there's always a source that will conflict what your source says. Also, I see this even greater with academicians, right? I see it even a bigger problem there, because this is something we were talking about, babe. You can't just write a paper from your own sense and your own experience and stuff. You have to start citing other people. So it ends up being a beast that feeds itself, where no man's thoughts can be his own original thoughts, where no new conversation can really be added without siphoning off of the old. And I think that's problematic in and of itself. First of all, then it ends up being a partial, at least at best, right? A partial regurgitation of information that is already pre-existing. But the thing is that I'm of the mindset a lot of this just needs to be scrapped, because what good has come of the pre-existing information? Like, nothing good has come of it. So I don't know why we keep reaching back to have a conversation about it or use it to support our ideologies.
Well, and academic writing, that's true. So, but again, it usually builds on something that had already existed. So you're continuing the argument? Are you challenging that argument? Are you coming up with kind of like a new hypothesis, right? And so I would say that's true for the most part. You have to cite, other studies and everything. I would say what we should do more than not is cite Black scholars. So that's first and foremost. But at the same time, not everyone has to play this game. You know what I mean? There's some people, whether it's identity politics or especially if you're white, you just become the authority of it. You don't necessarily have to cite anybody because you have that privilege to say it's coming out of my mouth, so therefore it's true. And so even though I have, advanced degrees and everything, and I still cite people, but a lot of people will just say, oh, well, it must be true because he's a doctor and everything, or he's been in education this long and everything. Yeah, it could be true because I have a lot of practical experience and everything, or I could cite the person as well. But again, that's just really in academia, right? And so when you're doing that type of academic writing, but I know, like I was at a meeting today, a community meeting, and I was just bringing up pragmatic, very practical points that could be done, like immediately. I didn't have to cite any educational text or anybody for that. It's just like, okay, these are commonsensical type of things. Why aren't we doing them? You know what I mean? So not everything has to, cite numbers, statistics, and whatever the latest, educational jargon is. Not everything has to do that. You know what I mean? Oftentimes, the most simple way and the most pragmatic way is really going to get the ear of most people there, right? But you are right in academic writing, especially, it's kind of like a puzzle piece. You have the idea, right? But again, you have to, cite other people that have, constructed or written or published something that could really substantiate that. And that's just how that game is played. But again, it doesn't mean that you don't have, your own intellect, right? Doesn't mean you don't have that. But again, that's just the way that academic game is played.
So, babe, we didn't talk about this, so it's fine if you don't want to do it tonight and just want to probably do it another day. But we do have a request to open up the phone lines. So how do you feel about that? Or do you want to just like schedule like an actual call-in show another time?
Yeah. So the thing is, every time we kind of do this, we say, you always say, and I say, it's not going to be
Okay, no. Okay.
hour. It's going to be an hour. And I'm like, no, it's going to be like 2.5 hours. And so I say that to say this, I don't want, so if we open up the phones, I don't want to be a jerk. I'm like, okay, this is the last caller because you know how that game goes. So it's your show. Of course, I would love to hear questions and everything, but I don't. I mean,
okay,
I know it's your end, so we could answer a few.
Okay.
It's getting late on my end, so yeah.
Okay, so I actually already said that that I would probably have to get your permission to do that ahead of time because you like to stick to the game plan. So what we will do, because you guys have asked for this before, what we will do is I will schedule a show ahead of time, like not a pop-up show. And when we have that conversation, we'll have the phone lines open, but you guys will know about that prior to us doing it because he's very orderly. So I kind of knew, I was saying that in the chat, babe. He can't see the chat. I was saying that in the chat that, I would have probably had to ask your permission beforehand before we got into it. So I'm sorry, no phone lines tonight, but yes.
We'll do it soon.
Yeah, but we will do it. Yeah, okay. So that's what has to be said for that. Oh, so several people in the chat said Black Power, baby.
Always. Every
day. The one thing that I think he and I really agree on is we really have to bridge a gap between what our academicians are doing, what we're doing here on YouTube, what our community activists are doing. And sometimes these individuals are one and the same, and what the everyday person is doing, just the person that's living their life, and they're not publishing papers, they're not here on YouTube having these conversations. I find that, and that's why I love having him on, right? Is um, here we are talking to a Black man that has their doctorate, and I cannot tell you how many times I've sat on a panel and been excluded as a person because it's felt that there is a class divide where our experiences are not the same. Well, I did grow up upper middle class, but babe, you didn't, right?
No, I grew up poor. Nah, that wasn't poor. No, it wasn't upper middle class. It was like lower middle class. So I mean, we weren't struggling or anything like that. But again, it wasn't even a copper spoon, right? So, but again, we were okay. You could look at my old pictures, which you will never see, and see I didn't miss any meals, right? So we were okay. But as far as some of those experiences, as far as traveling abroad and things of that nature, and our family wasn't afforded those opportunities. But again, we did well nonetheless. But again, definitely we will be considered upper crust compared to me. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I grew up a little bit differently, but I bring up those things to say this, is that we really do have to bridge the gap. And to me, what we do here on YouTube and what our people are doing in academia are actually intertwined. And instead of looking at each other as if we're working from polar opposite ends of the spectrum and there's no meeting ground, we have to recognize that a lot of those individuals in academia are from Black neighborhoods. They grew up just like the people here on YouTube. The only difference is that now they may have a few degrees under their belt, but that doesn't separate them from what's going on. And also, I like to use my man as a great example of somebody who got educated and made the money to quote unquote get out of the hood, although that means a different thing in California because you need a lot of money in California. But it's still involved in community efforts. So this idea that automatically the class a person is in, or if they have a degree or not, or if they are an ex-convict or not, or if they're just a regular Black person, living paycheck to paycheck or not, or if they're on YouTube, whatever those things are, that those divisions are not really necessary. Like at the core of it, we're all doing the same thing. But I will say the flaw in all of our actions is that we all are also heavily invested in this system. And I think for me, when I think about change that is effectual within the community, I think it's going to be necessary to have the understanding that with change is going to have to come a detachment from your investment in the current system, because these two things cannot coexist. The system is not built for us. The system is not designed for us. So at some point, there's going to have to be a detachment, both for those academicians, for the YouTubers, for the brother on the street, for the sister in the suburbs, like whatever it is, we're all going to have to detach at some point, leave those creature comforts and that investment in how things are in order to be effectual with regard to change and things like that. And I think that comes a lot with like focusing our energy and becoming uncomfortable. I talked about that earlier today with the thing that went on in Memphis. They became uncomfortable. So we need to stop being comfortable and then harness that power to detach from the very thing that we're so connected to, and unify, right? For a bigger cause, which
Well,
is
yeah. Well, I want to take some of the things you said and kind of pivot because I think so. I overstand and I get what you're saying about detachment, but I want to just go back what you said. Like getting out of the hood and things like that. And I think that's a thing that we constantly hear. You know, get your education, get a good job, so you get out of the hood. And so my problem with that is this: so if your hood is so horrible, where there's high body counts and it's just drug infested, and it's just like, I mean, it's just this perilous situation in the community where it's just like you have to get out of there and take your family out of there because there's like no hope, right? And unfortunately, there's still some communities that are still like that. But I think by and large, our communities are not like that. I mean, they're not perfect, right? But I think there's still livable communities where we can, ameliorate, the communities. And what I mean by that is this. So once we get our education and get our whatever, we often tend to move out of those communities, right? And really try to disassociate ourselves with that community and try to associate ourselves with really, frankly speaking, a white community. Just to say, hey, I live over here. I have this big house and I'm over here. I got away from you, need to grows. Look at me now. And I think that's something that's often perpetuated with our young people. And I think that's problematic because once we keep kind of reifying that and we are, and I hate to say growing, but there's, you know, there's a reification of this kind of happens systemically where, hey, this young brother, this young sister is educated and everything, they're doing well, and now they're taken or drawn out of the neighborhood where they could be contributing to. And again, I know some certain situations are different where you have to get out of. I get that. But I think if there's a reinvestment, if there's people staying within those confines, if they could, and working in that structure to help build it up, then I think we become better. And let me tell you what I mean by that as an example. So, where I'm from originally, there was there's a school that's not far from my mom's home, and this school, although I didn't attend it, although I didn't attend the school, I'm very familiar with the school. A lot of my friends attended it, and so recently they had a turnover within administration. They got rid of the principal, the VPs, and everything. And it was interesting because I'm like, I could go back home and maybe do some good work because I've always considered, you know, going back home and doing that type of work, whether it's administration or whether it's in higher ed, right? And I was like, I don't know about that. K through 12 bureaucracy and being an administrator, it's that system is really, really tough. And then my son text me, with the story. It's like, hey, here's your opportunity to shine and go back home. And that meant a lot to me because he was like, yeah, Dad, you go back there and do a damn thing. And I think oftentimes that we don't consider, being a pillar within our communities. And again, I'm not saying that to get my shine on or anything like that. But again, I would hope that we could, not just me, that if possible, if and when possible, that young brothers and sisters and anybody could stay within the community and we could start getting a critical mass of people that are, who navigated through, educational system or whatever it is successfully, and they're still there to be a mentor or to help others do the same thing. But once we just have this like one way ticket out, we're going to constantly have this plan. And then, of course, we know what's happening with gentrification. Once you leave, you're not going to be able to come back. So I think if we have some stick to itiveness, again, when and if possible, I think we could do a lot of good things within our communities instead of saying, hey, get out, go over here, divest in your own community and go someplace else. So again, I know you weren't saying that specifically, but I know that's a common, I think it's a common narrative that's thrown out, especially the young people. Get out of here and go do something else. And then again, our community is still suffering from not having that black brilliance, right? That black genius, the black geniuses within our own community. So again, where does that start? And again, I'm not saying that because I would have been hypocritical too, because when I left my hometown, I then went to another part of the state. Although I established a lot of good things there, along with a lot of other great people in the community and everything. But then again, I I live here too. So again, I'm not saying this hypocritically, but I'm saying this as, especially for young people, we shouldn't always tell them to leave if there's an opportunity for them to stay there and help the community. Now, if there's no opportunities and everything, sometimes we have to make the opportunities, right? But again, if there's just like gloom and doom and everything, I'm not saying to just stay there and just put yourself in a bad place. But I'm saying there when we can and we can establish some type of situation, if we could again, analogous to Black Wall Street, then we definitely need a critical mass of Black people, in one place other than Atlanta. And I'm not hating on Atlanta. I'm just saying
Oh my
that's
God, I'm hating on Atlanta because all those gay people, I cannot.
oh, here we go.
No, Atlanta is crawling with disease. It's a useless place. I don't know why people go there.
I'm talking about the synergy of all the Black folks there. See, Irene is
Well,
always going.
I would pick some place that's not debaucherous. I mean, there are other Black. I would pick DeSoto, Texas, over Atlanta. Okay, it's a smaller place and it's not as flamboyant, but at least there's solid Black people there.
Houston, what about that? But my point is that if we win and if we can maintain and stay within some of our communities and show others that, listen, the grass is not always greener on the side, then I think we should do that. But again, I know that that's not possible all the time. But if we could start doing that more than not, I think we'll see a whole hell of a lot of a difference within our communities.
Well, I think you're talking about self-gentrification, essentially, right?
Absolutely.
Gentrifying ourselves. And I think and I think that that's a great idea. But I also want to say, when people do move, I hate the narrative to be painted that they're doing it because they want to get out. A lot of times people just want a nice house. And so those houses aren't in the neighborhood. I knew of a neighborhood that one of my best friends lives in. And back when I was in my, maybe teenage years, there was a house where somebody had built a house that was very out of place in that neighborhood. But they built the house, they put a metal fence around it, and they didn't leave. But when you went by the house, it was much nicer and much larger and totally different than all the other houses in the neighborhood. I don't know if that could be duplicated. And I don't know every time a Black person, quote unquote, leaves the community, it's because they're like, screw y'all, I'm getting the hell out of here. I'm going to go be by some white people. I think it's that in a lot of areas, if you want, that 4-bedroom house with a pool, that's not in the Black neighborhood. And it's not as much about people trying to escape being around their people as much as what they are wanting for their family isn't available there. But so I just want to throw that out there because I think a lot of times.
I think it's a combination. I think some Negroes want to be around white people. Let's just keep it a buck. They like, I want to be around you, bro. I want to be around white folks. Ice is always cooler. I don't want to be around you Negroes. And so I think so. Just to push back on that a little bit, I think, I think sometimes we have to make the communities that we want to see. So again, with gentrification, these neighborhoods weren't like that. But guess what happened over time? And of course, we're looking at entities and corporations with money, right? But again, I think, to a small degree, Black individuals in the community, again, they can have, the homes and do the things that they want to do. Now, again, it may look different compared to the rest of the homes or the rest of the community, but it could start a trend, right? And again, some people say, oh, well, you can't do that. Them Negroes gonna rob you there. That may be the case, or that may not be the case. We don't know. But I think we can, start to implement some of these practices. So again, in my hometown, I mean, there's a home across from my mom, and it happens to be some Asians that live there. They turned that home into a freaking mansion. I mean, it's huge. It's like, what is this house doing on this street? But it's okay. I mean, it's plush. And again, it's not a problem.
Hmm.
And guess what
But I
happened?
think it's different in California. Like we have that a lot in California. Like there will be a ghetto and then like luxury, like over in Hunters Point in the city. Like there are luxury condominiums next to like, and by next to I mean like a block away from like the like real life ghetto.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's a little different in California because property values are super high. So it makes a lot more sense if you're buying a property for a million plus to like, because yeah, especially down there, it's definitely going for that. Like running up on a million, the property values.
well, and again, depending on where you are, if you're in a black community, again, they're still going to be undervalued, even though they're trying to buy up all that land, right?
Yeah, true,
Again,
true,
once
true.
black people are there and they own it, it's dramatically devalued. I mean, I was talking to a friend. I have to bring up Atlanta again. Sorry, Irene, but they were talking. He was telling me where his parents live. You know, it's in a private, in a black community, gorgeous homes. They tend to have them, in the South and Atlanta in particular. And he said the same home, same square footage, everything in the white neighborhood. What they call it, Bankhead, Buckhead, something like that. I don't know. I haven't been in Atlanta, so excuse me, folks from Atlanta. Correct me. I don't know, but over that part, the white folks side, same exact house. Of course, the value is almost double, if not triple. And so these are things that we can't account for as far as the value, but as far as the aesthetics and the upkeep and everything, we could do that and still maintain a black community.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we can gentrify ourselves. And I think that's something we don't think about. I think that these are all great plans in my eyes for assimilation purposes. So, if we're not going to do anything other than assimilate, then we need to assimilate with some sense. So, I would say if we're going to be integrationists and assimilate into the current society, then these are game plans that we might as well follow. I think sometimes as a people, like we're not really about to do anything, like the revolution is not going to come, but we want to keep talking and acting like the revolution is going to come. And I think if there's not going to be action as far as progressing our community and protecting our community and placing our community where you guys know where I stand with that in different positions, then we need to assimilate as best as we can. We need to, integrate, integration 2.5.0. Like I don't know, like what I mean. Like we're gonna have to do things like that. So I think a lot of these conversations, like I personally, just like me, just speaking for myself, I sit on the fence with these conversations because I'm like, I'm with this whole game plan. If the ultimate game plan is integration, like full deep integration and assimilation. But I also recognize that there is a cap with this. And that goes into the document that we were looking at the other day, which is that we aren't going to ever be equal, right? But what we could do is we could have played the assimilation and integration game so that we could make the best of our position, right? The best of the position we're going to be allowed to play. And so that's why I sit on the fence with these conversations, because I'm just really not about that life, y'all. Like I'm about a whole different kind of life. So I'm about a whole different kind of mindset. So I promote this if we're going to be doing it, but then I like literally like a part of me is throwing up on the inside at the same time.
So elaborate with. I mean, I'm trying to understand what you mean by the assimilation and integration is game. So this is a game. This is like the spook who sat next to the door type of thing, or what exactly do you mean by?
No, what I mean is that there are two paths in my eyes, right? This is just Irene talking, right? In my eyes, there are two paths this thing is going. It is the full acceptance of the status quo in our position in this society. And I've already talked about, for those of you who didn't watch the video, maybe I'll link it at the end of this, that I don't think we can buy our way out of this. I don't think we can six-figure our way out of this. I don't think there's enough money or enough lobbying we can do to get out of our current condition. There is a position Black people play in this society, and we will remain in that position. Period. They're not trying to have us in other positions. It's not going to be 50% Black in the top 1%, even if we were intelligent enough and could acquire enough. It would go down.
You sound like a critical race theorist right now, but go ahead.
Well, no, I would say, no, I'm not a critical race theorist because I don't think racism is permanent. I think that there needs to be like a social political revolution in our country. We need a social political revolution, which means zero investment in the current system, because the current system does not stand or exist after a social political revolution. You build a new system. So when I start having conversations about investment in a system that me personally feels needs to come down in a social political revolution, then I'm having a different conversation. I'm having an integrationist and sustainability conversation in the current system. So, like I said, a piece of me throws up on the inside when we have these conversations, but I also recognize, in lieu of a socio-political revolution, what we are left with is integration and assimilation. That's what we're left with. We are left with integration and assimilation. And then that's where I start to, indulge conversations about gentrifying your own neighborhoods, collecting this fiat money and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? That's where I start to have those conversations. And then we just navigate around the racism that is always going to be because of how they've positioned us. I mean, we've heard, just 100 years ago, why we didn't get reparations, right? Because if 1 in every 10 of us were to compete with them, it would be carnage, quote unquote, right? In a medical document, in a medical document that's published in this country. This is how they were talking 100 years ago. And then here we are moving forward 100 years and everybody's acting clueless as to, what the real issue is, which is why I say we can't buy our way out of it, because they've said you can't buy your way out of it. Like, if you were ever to become a true competitor, it would be a problem. So it's not even us that's the problem. So, like I said, if we are not looking toward a socio-political revolution, which, if you're a constitutionalist, like, we're entitled to that, right? So when we see government authorities and things like that overreaching their position, or just as a human being, we see this throughout the earth. When conditions for the people reach a precipice, there are social and political revolutions. This country was founded by the Europeans that came here because of a socio-political revolution. That's what they were hoping to attain when they came here. So it's not a dirty concept. But if we're not talking about that, then we're talking about integration and assimilation.
But even within that frame, if I hear you correctly, when you talk about this social political revolution to get some type of change, right? But again, even when we look at welfare, right, that occurred because, if I'm hearing you correctly, this social political revolution, and they said, okay, of course, with propagation and propaganda and everything, how can we still control them? Okay, yes, we're going to give them something so they don't tear shit up, right? To satisfy them, to placate them. So I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. So if you're saying that we're going to force, like, the government or the powers that be to do something, on our behest?
Well, you mean as far as socio-political revolution? No, because in a socio-political revolution, the governmental structure, it ceases to exist as it is, and it is remade by the victor of the socio-political revolution. So there's no conversations with the defunct government, right? There's no conversations with the defunct system. There's no use of defunct money. Money becomes obsolete. I say this to people all the time. money is a vehicle for barter, it becomes obsolete all the time. There's all kinds of money that, you know, in recent history has become totally useless, and it was replaced with new money. So that, to me, these are two separate conversations. Socio-political revolution does not include investment in the current system, because what follows a socio-political revolution is a new system. Ergo, the property you purchase, the money you use, the, you know, reputation you built, the paper you, like, all those things become null because it's a new system that is being rebuilt, right? It's not a change, because you could have just a social revolution, which is something different. You could have a political revolution that is something different. A socio-political revolution is like a remake of how society functions, period, on every level. That's one conversation. A second conversation that is completely separate from that is an integration and assimilation conversation, which is that we are going to be invested in this system. It's not going to change. We are not going to change it. We're not engaging in a revolution. But what we will do is make the absolute best situation for our people possible under the current oppressive status. And I think that is the conversation that is had most often when we're having conversations about our people. We're talking about investment in stocks and bonds. We're talking about buying property and building wealth. We're talking about, just to, you know, in this conversation, you know, basically gentrifying yourselves, gentrifying your own neighborhoods, making your own neighborhoods good without bringing other people in. I'm not saying those conversations are bad. I think they're appropriate conversations for integration and assimilation in the best way possible while you remain invested in the system, not separate from the system. But I do think that we have to be clear that those are two separate conversations. The two things
So,
cannot happen together.
so okay, that makes all the sense in the world now that you clarified it. So my question to you is that you think there could be some type of disruption from within, again, referencing the spook who sat by the door. You think that you could, and this is I understand it's a very dangerous game, and I'll use myself for example, because in the field of education, you know, and being a black man, because it's a rarity, um, there's all these type of carrots and everything that they'll dangle in front of you. You know what I mean? Because you know, I'm in it, but I'm not of it. You know, I'm constantly telling people that I'm a disruptor, and I'm trying to get more people to disrupt it. Um, do you feel as though those type of things can occur where you're kind of you're playing a game, but again you're trying to dismantle it? What are your thoughts? What's your positionality about that?
I don't think that that's, I think that sort of behavior is most advantageous if there's going to be a long-term investment in the status quo. Then I think we need that to go on, because that's the only way anything will be even remotely close to kind of being equitable for our community. But I think the real thing is that it's going to have to be a head-on thing. It's not going to be a, you know, interrupt the system like from within kind of activity. That's not typically, right? Have I seen a coup or something like that? It has happened. It's just very rare. Normally, even if you have a coup, because that's ultimately what a coup is, right? It is when
Mm-hmm.
there's internal disruption in a current system. Um, Normally, when you have a coup, there is a level of um, what is I want to pick my word carefully. Normally, when you have a coup, there is a level of there's a level of force.
Well, I
There's a
would just
level
say
of
that.
force involved too. Coups just don't happen, you know, without there actually being some sort of coercive force included with the coup. Right.
Absolutely.
So I
No,
would say in
absolutely.
our system, I don't think a coup would work though. In our system, I think coercive force
Well,
would be the face of a socio-political revolution. The best that could happen is that those in higher positions spoke out in alliance with the socio-political movement that's happening at the everyday man level, right? But I don't think the coup is going to come um, from within the higher echelons of society. I just don't see that happening. Not in this
well, I could understand why
current
you may feel
system.
that way. I mean, I can understand, you know, the I can understand, the disbelief in that. But I think there should be a coup operation. I just made up a word like Jesse Jackson. And what I mean by that, there should be multiple approaches. So, yeah, there should be a coup, right? There should be that type of, you know, overtaking. And then you should have people that are wearing a mask, and you should have people with ski masks. I mean, you're going to need a multiplicity of approaches in order to do this. And I think that's where we get caught up in it because we just think that there's one way to skin a cat. And I just strongly disagree with that.
Well,
And
I don't think
so,
that there's one way, but I think that there's one way that's unavoidable. Like, I think no matter what you do
oh,
around it, there's
absolutely,
one thing that's going to
absolutely.
happen no matter what. And I think that that part is the part our people have the biggest problem with.
Well, I, I think some of our people, I think the reason why we have a big problem with it is because the narrative that's been placed on us by white folks, right? And so we feel as if we come to that conclusion of being forceful, as being more militant, right? As being, you know, as 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 being defensive, right? Or forceful, then that's a problem. And again, I don't think those options should be taken off the table because, like you said, ultimately we're going to come to this. I mean, when we're seeing what we're seeing in society right now, which has happened for hundreds of years, with brothers and sisters being murdered, just these 2019 lynches that are taking place, right? What do you think is going to eventually happen? In my estimation, that should be happening, there's going to be some resistance, and not just the type we're seeing in Memphis, but there's going to be some very strategic and deadly force resistance on those who are killing our people. I mean, we just have to know those type of things are going to happen. But again, people don't like to talk about that because that type of conversation is militant and scary. But are people getting killed on a daily basis? It's not military scary. So again, we need to be forthright and keep it a buck when we have these conversations, and to say that that's not going to be on the table is a false reality.
Yeah, I agree. Taylor said something. He said, funny thing is, we wouldn't have to worry about being in poverty if we just rebelled against a system that values currency. And I think that's kind of the point that I'm making is that a lot of our concerns end up being null when you take into account a socio-political aspect of revolutionary thought. Now, with that said, I agree with you that it helps to have positionality in those places. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. What we have seen of our people who reach a certain echelon in society is that they are not community minded. And if they are, it's very surface and it is from a place of assimilation and integration.
Well,
And so when that is the behavior, that's why I said in this system, I don't see it being effective because in this system, that's not how our people typically behave when they get into these positions of power. If that was the rule, the spook that sat by the door was the rule of our people's behavior in these positions, I would be more inclined to fall back on that. But I don't see that being the rule. I see the rule being something else, that they become traitorous as they gain and maybe don't even recognize that they're traitors, but like
Well, I think
literally.
that's part of the process, right? So you have to distance yourself from Negroes. You can't reinvest, especially as you're climbing that upper echelon ladder, right? You're trying to become a billionaire. You're trying to get to that status. And again, there's rules of engagement when you're playing that game, right? And again, so again, yes, there are glass ceilings for especially black billionaires, right? And again, people feel as if they have all this agency and autonomy to do everything they want. That's really not the reality. Okay. And again, I'm not caping for them, but that's how it goes. And a lot of times they do things to help, black folks in the black community, but it's so clandestine, right? They can't be in front and do those things. And a lot of people like to do it that way anyway, right? But they're them in particular, and especially, they can't come out and do a lot of the things that they do. You know, even though I disagree with Jordan and the shoe cost and everything, he on the low he does some things that help black people, but it's on the low, right? The only person that he's a millionaire, I don't think he's a billionaire. Magic Johnson was one of the only ones that was really like in your face, like we're helping, black economics. He had the movie theaters. He had certain things where he was hiring black folks and like, listen, this is what we're doing. But again, outside of him, and there may be a few others that I'm missing, um, they're not doing that, right? And again, they're not doing that because the game is not played that way. So it's an eerie irony, or excuse me, it's an interesting irony that once you've become a billionaire, right? Once you played this game and everything, guess who looks up at you and admires you? The black people that you distance yourself from and say, listen, I want to become just like that person. Really? Only if you knew what that person had to undergo to get to that status, right? Because again, they're not really doing us any good. And again, there's some people that do, but again, the lion's share of them don't. It's like Carter G. Woodson says, it's the miseducation of the Negro. So they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And so, with us being so capitalistic and so money hungry and everything, yeah, that's going to be a difficult thing to do because we will sell each other out for, $2. You know what I mean? We don't care, especially if it's, coming from the white man. We're like, oh, $2? Yeah, I'll kill that Negro.
Oh
I'll
my goodness.
slice his throat. Whatever you say, massa. And we really have to get to a place where like, nah, I'm cool. But again, I know they'll dangle those opportunities, for you to, and not, kill somebody literally, like, but symbolically or assassinate somebody's character. These are things that they do, especially within in my field of education, especially if it's another brother. Well, what do you think about so and so? And they want you to go in on them. And I'll be like, and I may not even like the Negro, but I'm gonna say, oh, they're cool. I'm never gonna let you come between us. And I know Irene has this conversation with the babies all the time. You never let anybody else, become between a family. And again, that's something that we still don't do very well. Again, we could have some disdain, some dislike and everything, or may not even, maybe even hate that person, right? But again, we can't, let our enemies, create this further bifurcation between us, especially if they're going to use a carrot and use money as a way in which to further that bifurcation. So again, it's part of the game. But unfortunately, we play victims. We fall in line, and we fall. We become a part of our own oppression. It's just that.
So yeah, I think with that we're
hitting 4 more minutes. Or
so do you have any closing thoughts, babe?
Where did we? So we started off with the really this bifurcation between black YouTubers and black academicians. I think we both concur that there's a space for both, right? And I think we should hold each other accountable And if our ultimate goal is helping Black people, then I think there's space for all of us to do that, and there's enough money out there for all of us to do that. So I know, and I think some of you Black YouTubers may be doing this. I know some Black YouTubers or whatever podcast, whatever platform you may have, you have Black academicians on. You know what I mean? You have them on your show, and you have them on your show, more than not. And so to me, that's a start. I mean, so I don't think there has to be, you know, this distinction. Well, I think there should be a distinction. I think nuance and everything is good, but I don't think we should be at odds with each other. And I damn sure don't think we should be hustling, Black people. That's wouldn't should it damn sure shouldn't be about that. And so I definitely have an issue with that, whether it's Black academicians or whether it's Black YouTubers. So again, hopefully this conversation, sparks other conversation with Black YouTubers and other academicians, so we could work very symbiotically to help our folks. I mean, that's ultimately what it's about. And again, I want to be crystal clear. Get your money. That's fine. Get your bread. I'm not hating on anybody. Make your money, right? But don't make it off the backs, of, Black, my, Black folks who are catching hell. You know what I mean? Like you're the oracle voice for them. And again, you're just making money off of them and not reinvested in them some way, shape, or form. That's the problem I have. Again, with anybody. And again, I want to make it clear, I'm talking about Black academicians and YouTubers who do this type of, practice or fall in this ilk. And so those are my concluding thoughts about that. I mean, the great conversation. We, to your listening audience, we will have a time where we could, field some of your questions. But again, we'll definitely plan for that, maybe within the next couple of days. We can do that. Look forward to your questions and everything. It's always a pleasure. Thank you for allowing me the space. Deuces.
Yeah, so you guys, I always love talking to you guys. We have to have a chill session because I think the live I did earlier today was pretty deep and we had an interesting conversation now. Like I said, Michi X is going to be here tomorrow at noon. So that's noon Pacific time, I believe. I should probably confirm that. So I probably need to touch base with her and make sure this is going to be noon Pacific. So, but yeah, the plan is for noon Pacific time tomorrow with Michi X. And then we'll have like a chill session because I think after that, we're going to need a chill session just because, like I said, Michi brings a lot of energy and stuff like that. And it's been like a week of a lot of serious content. So it'll be nice just to like kick back and us just, do calls, maybe an open panel, just something that's really, really chill and laid back and not too serious, because that's always nice too. Thank you, Little Miss Chocolate. So with that said, I'll talk to you guys later. You guys enjoy the rest of your Friday or Saturday, depending on where you live and what time it is there. And yeah, I thank you guys for coming out. I hope you enjoyed the conversation.